Welcome back to Shannon's Club TV, the program for Shannon's Club members and all motoring enthusiasts who are passionate about their cars and motorcycles. Classic car historian Joe Kenwright and I have been busy on the Shannon's Club website writing about cars in Australia that have been immortalised on the road and on the racetrack. These paired histories have proven so popular with Shannon's Club members, we're now featuring the cars here on Shannon's Club TV. Today we're taking a close look at the Australian Ford Galaxies that were produced here from 1965 to 1968. Joe, it's interesting, given these cars' successes, Australians traditionally rejected the Yank Tank, the big American car. What changed in the 1960s that made these so acceptable?
The late 1950s, everything got a little bit out of control, and we still had pretty rough roads, and we never saw the American cars on highways. But in the mid-60s, the roads were getting better, and the Americans were playing down their lines a bit, and they looked just perfect in this country at that time.
So let's take a look at the Australian Ford Galaxy and how it contributed to Ford's local revival.
Back in the early 1960s, Ford's local product planners couldn't see how the company could make any money selling the US Galaxy in Australia. But Ford went ahead and did it anyway. Bill Burke, Ford's local marketing whiz and later president who set the company up for market dominance, could see the big picture. The Galaxy had a key role in his strategy. Ford launched a global commitment to total performance in 1964, except its bread and butter US Falcon was falling apart on local roads. Ford Australia rejected the next US Falcon in 1964 so it could fix the old one. A small number of Canadian-built 1964 Galaxies provided a context for the Galaxy-inspired looks of the local XM Falcon facelift while it was toughened up underneath.
Why do you think they didn't race the XM Falcon locally when they were punting around things like Ford Galaxies?
And Cortinas.
Yeah.
I think the truth is that they still had no confidence in that car. They were still trying to toughen it up. And while the 200 engine probably had enough grunt, there wasn't a gearbox to go with it either. So
yeah, it was only automatic.
That's correct. Yeah. The 1965 Galaxy showcased the XP Falcon's bold new front styling, market-leading metallic colours, pleated soft feel seats and the torque box reinforcement that finally made the Falcon unbreakable for Australian conditions. The big Galaxy was also a total performance leader. The 390 6.6 litre big block option was the biggest V8 offered in Australia.
Which raises an interesting question, doesn't it? Why didn't Ford race the big block Galaxy? I mean, it was the total performance era.
Well, they sold so few of them and it would have cost a fortune to make that car hold together on racetracks around Australia. And they were only a year or two off from releasing the Falcon that was going to dominate.
Yeah.
So each Galaxy then was an important hero model for successive new local Ford models. The 1966 Galaxy with its local trim and paint was the perfect stablemate for the tough new local version of the 66 US Falcon. In 1967, a variation of the Galaxy's Lincoln-inspired dash and luxury interior were features of the first Australian Fairlane. Meanwhile, the Galaxy had become such a favourite for limousine duties around Australia, it led to an all-Australian LTD in 1973, a model that was on sale for over 30 years.
If you'd like to read the full story on the Australian Ford Galaxies or many other rare and classic cars, you can find them all here on the Shannon's Club website, where you can also share your thoughts. Coming up, we share the passion with a proud Ford Galaxy enthusiast on Shannon's Club TV. The Ford Galaxy wrote a special chapter in Australian touring car history thanks to the appearance of two of these notorious American monsters in the early 1960s. The first was a 63 four-door sedan imported by Australian drivers champion Len Lukey. Affectionately nicknamed Big Red, Lukey's colossal US sedan weighed around 1.9 tonnes, powered by Ford's latest 406 big block V8 and featuring numerous chassis and suspension tweaks for circuit racing by Holman Moody.
So Mark, why did Lukey race the four-door and not the fastback that they were racing overseas?
It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because we saw the fastback in action on the NASCAR tracks of the US. Simply the local Australian touring car rules demanded that a car, unless it was a very small car, had to be a four-door sedan.
So it was always tied to what you drove on the road?
Absolutely, had very, very close connection to what we saw on the streets. Now with racing great Lex Davison at the wheel, Big Red was loud, fast and spectacular. However, with top speeds of 230 kilometres an hour, its four-wheel drum brakes were prone to severe overheating and its engine and drivetrain proved fragile. When Norm Beechey replaced Davison, a swap to an even bigger 427 V8 in '64 failed to improve the car's reliability, and after 2 frustrating seasons, Lukey sadly retired the big Ford. The other famous Galaxy to have raced in Australia during this time was the 1963.5 lightweight 2-door imported from the UK by Sir Gawain Bailey. Powered by a monstrous 427 big block V8, it was one of a small batch of factory lightweights produced by Ford for Superstop drag racing in the US that was specially modified by Holman and Moody for circuit racing.
Mark, it's interesting, Holman and Moody used to produce NASCARs, and here they are sending race cars all over the world. What was going on?
Well, a lot of people didn't make the connection with Holman and Moody and circuit racing, but a very interesting thing a lot of people probably don't know about, that Holman and Moody were at one stage considering racing a Galaxy in the Le Mans 24-hour race. They actually built a lengthened and lowered version of a '63 Galaxy with the driver pulled right back, a big 427 V8 in it. The only problem was Ford, who was spending millions of dollars on the GT40 program, said, we really don't want that thing racing against our GT40, so the idea never got up. Bailey's car became notorious for its appearance at the '64 Sandown 6-hour race. With Lex Davison at the wheel, the lightweight Galaxy was so fast it lapped the entire field after only 12 laps and was more than 2 laps in front before serious brake problems emerged. Davison ended up crashing through a wooden fence, with the big car coming to rest with its nose dangling over a 10-metre drop to a large dam below. Fortunately, Davison escaped unharmed, but the near-death experience prompted him to say those immortal words, "The big bitch nearly killed me."
G'day, my name's Rick and this is my '65 Ford Galaxy. It's a 289 Australian delivered Ford Galaxy. I was in excellent condition. I just had to do all the brakes on it because it had been sitting around for a while. The thing I like the most about the '65 Galaxy is they only ever made it that 1 year in this style, and I like it because of the size of the car, and it's just a really nice car to drive. It's a nice cruising car. And I've liked these cars ever since I was a teenager. I remember looking through all the magazines and actually marking the page and saying to myself, one day I'll get one of these cars. My best memory was when I walked into Shannon's. Well, Lily didn't know that I liked these cars, and out of all the cars in there, she went straight to this car and said, gee Dad, I really like this car. This would be a really nice cruiser.
Well, I really liked the car because it was a car that I've never seen before. I liked the style and the colour and the interior. It was really interesting to me.
And sure enough, a couple of days later, I went to the auction and I paid a little bit more than what I wanted, but it didn't matter because I wanted to get the car for Lily.
Welcome back to Shannon's Club TV. We're talking to Chris Borrabon from the Shannon's auction team.
Hi guys.
Chris, with all the left-hand drive Galaxies, the US imports coming into the country, what impact has that had on the genuine local Galaxies?
Not much at all. I think that the Aussie cars have actually done pretty well. They're standing on their own 2 feet. I think there's a great following for the Aussie Galaxies, and I don't think the imports have had much of a bearing on their values. No, I think if anything, the Australian Galaxies have done well in value over the last few years.
We always talk about the competition histories of cars and how that increases their values at classic auctions. But of course the Galaxy didn't really have a huge competition career in Australia, but it was enormously successful in NASCAR racing in the US. Does that have any influence on local buyers?
I don't think we're seeing much of that, and as you said, I think it had a really brief history here in Australia. So no, I think they're they were probably recognised as the car to have. Where people were growing up, the Galaxy was probably the rarer of the Ford family here in Australia.
The top shelf,
top shelf, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think people aspired to own the Galaxy and probably never were able to afford it back then. So I think they've sort of come into their own that way because they're now an affordable classic at a realistic price point.
Chris, Galaxy values have been steadily increasing. What do you think's driving that?
Look, I think the mid-60s Fairlanes have probably helped the value of the Galaxy also, but I think the finish and the appointment of a Galaxy has probably helped itself. It's such a beautiful car for the day, and I think people are realising that more and more now.
Chris, as you know, the Galaxy was available locally with both the Windsor small block V8 and the FE big block. So how much of a difference does that make in desirability for local buyers?
I think we've, from a personal preference point of view, we haven't seen a huge difference in value. But I think there's obviously a preference for the 390 big block. It has really more torque, more power, and probably for the size of a Galaxy, it probably makes it a better cruiser.
Well, Chris, thanks for joining us on Shannon's Club TV, and don't forget, for all the latest information on Shannon's auctions, check out the Shannon's Club website. Now, if you'd like some memorable photographs of racing Galaxies, or indeed any Australian competition car, visit autopics.com.au, Australia's most comprehensive motorsport archive.
So thanks for joining us for this blast from the past with the monster Ford Galaxy. We'll catch you next time on Shannon's Club TV.